I was recently looking through my closet when I found this blue necktie I had, probably from like a Harry Potter costume or something, but it reminded me of this TikTok I saw a few months ago of Kate Bartlett wearing this dress made out of ties that her sister made. I'll put it right here. But I remember when I saw that I was like, ooh, I want to make a dress like that, but then I just never did. But this tie reminded me of it, so I think now's the time to make that tie dress. And as much as I loved the original silhouette of it, I wanted to make it a bit different to suit what I like better, so I drew up a little sketch. I guess I'll also put it here, but I want, instead of it just being kind of like a slip dress, I wanted some like, I don't know, like more of a bodice detail, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like instead of it just being straight across and then straps, I wanted like more of a V. Yeah, you can see my sketch. You can see my sketch. Instead of a neckline like that, I wanted it like an M. I don't know the official word for that, but that's what I'm going for. Okay, I'm back from Goodwill, so I'm gonna do a little haul of everything I got. I didn't get much, but might as well show you. So first thing, I got a big white sheet just in case I wanted to do like a lining or something, I don't know. So this was like $4. I don't know if I'll use it, but I have it just in case. And then I got this zipper. I actually already had this zipper, it was like $2. And then I got the ties. I got 17, they were each $2. I was kind of struggling in Goodwill because they didn't have a bunch of just one color. They had, the most common colors were red, blue, and then like neutrals. They had like the more browny neutrals and then the gray neutrals. So I was kind of panicking because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I ended up getting like a mix of all of them that kind of went together. I'll lay them out and stuff so you can see all the different patterns. Before we get started, I wanted to give a little disclaimer. This is not going to be a tutorial, and it's going to be more of a make it with me video because I tend to wing a lot of my sewing projects, and there was a lot of trial and error that went into the making of this dress because I made a lot of mistakes, which you'll see. But I hope you still enjoy. So the first thing I did was I seam ripped all of the ties. Well, I didn't have a seam ripper because I couldn't find mine, but I used thread scissors, so same thing. But this took me forever. I timed it. It literally took me an hour, and I got through like a whole podcast episode, but whatever. Just put on something and it goes by kind of fast, I guess, but I literally just said it took forever. But yeah, this was not a very fun part, but yeah. The next thing I did was tape out the design I wanted for my bodice on my dress form, and I traced it with some paper to make the pattern, which I forgot to film, but you'll see me use the pattern later. But yeah, you just trace it with paper. And then I cut out the ties for the skirt because the ties were super long, so I wanted to cut them so they would be more manageable. But this was where I messed up. Instead of measuring each one, I just measured it based on the one before, which meant that they got shorter and shorter, and I didn't realize that until it was a little too late. So yeah, I had to fix it later, which you'll see, and I'll explain everything then. But yeah, just measure each one with the tape measure. And then I ironed each tie flat, and always check your iron settings to make sure you don't like burn or melt your fabric. Also, this was really hard because the creases did not want to come out of some of these. Like, I don't know, as much as I ironed and ironed, the creases were still there for some of them, and you can like kind of see it on some of the finished ones, but it didn't really bother me that much, so I just kept it. Then I marked out where I wanted to sew on each of my ties, just to like keep a little guide, and because the fabrics were all different and like different materials, I just figured this would make everything a lot less complicated and everything. And then I sewed them all together, and like I said, because they were all different fabrics, some of them were like super slippery and thin, and some of them were a bit thicker. A tip is to put tissue paper in between the layers if your fabric's really slipping. I didn't do this, and I kind of wish I did, but that's okay. And then I cut off the excess of each tie, and I wish I did this before I sewed them together. I don't know why I didn't, but I would just recommend doing it before, because this was like, I don't know, this was unnecessary for me to do, and it would have made sewing them together easier. So yeah, this is a lot of do as I say, not as I do if you want to make this. So at this point I realized that my skirt was way too short, so I went and bought 4 more ties and cut them way longer than I needed. And what I was going to do with these was I was going to replace the 4 in the middle with the longer ones just so they would be long enough on the actual dress, because the ties there were way too short. And then I was going to use the extra 4 ties that I didn't use in the skirt for the bodice, if that makes sense. And you'll see it. Those 4 on the side on the left I used for the bodice. Actually, not the very last one, but whatever. And here I am cutting out the pattern for the bodice that I mentioned earlier. I first cut it out on the white sheet, and then I sewed it together, and then I cut it out of the actual ties, which you'll see, and then sewed those together because the ties were pretty thin, so I just wanted a little lining, just, you know. So yeah, here I am cutting out the ties. This is what the pattern ended up looking like. It wasn't the best pattern ever made. This is what it should have been, so if you actually want to make the dress, use this pattern. But make it for your measurements, if that makes sense. Like I said, I wing lots of my projects, and this is not perfect. I like how I said this wasn't a tutorial, and then I'm talking to you like you should follow along. Anyway, yeah, this was just a fun little project for me, and a lot of these mistakes, I made a lot of mistakes, and I had to fix them later, which you'll see, but yeah, it's okay. And then I pinned the 2 right sides together and then sewed across and then flipped them inside out and then top stitched them down. I don't know if I showed that. Oh, and here it is sewn together, and the middle was kind of looking wonky, so I just pinned it in half and then sewed a line down where I showed you just to make it a little less wonky. Here's a little picture because I did a really bad job filming this part. This was like one of the mistakes I was talking about that I had to fix, so yeah. And then I took the skirt that I made and just cut it out to fit the bodice, and then I sewed the bodice to the skirt, right sides together, and yeah, I did a straight stitch across, and then I did a zigzag stitch just to make sure everything stayed in place. This voiceover is so chaotic, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm acting like someone's actually gonna make this, but I don't know. Oh, here I am measuring out the straps, and yeah, I cut it out of some excess tie. I cut it out longer than I needed to because I learned my lesson from the skirt, and I basically just cut them to be the width of that ruler that you can see, the like clear one. You can't really see it because it's clear, but yeah, I cut it to the width of that, and then I folded it in half and then straight stitched it down, and it like turned out to be a perfect like length. I don't know how to describe it, just ignore what I just said. I sewed it down, and then I didn't show this, but after I sewed them, I pressed them. And then I took a safety pin to turn it inside out. You can also use a loop turner, that's probably the more professional way to do this, but I just use a safety pin. Also, I saw that you could use like a crochet hook if you wanted to like push it through, but yeah, the safety pin method is my favorite method. And then I sewed on the zipper, so I'm trying to show you better than I did in my last video, but I basically just pinned the zipper on. I guess I didn't show you that well. I pinned them right sides together, I guess, and then sewed it really close to the zipper. I don't have a zipper foot, but the zipper, like, you can shove it under. It just, like, makes a hassle with the actual zippy part, if that makes sense. I normally just stop halfway and then zip it up or down to get it out of the way of the foot. And then, yeah. And then when I was done, I just sewed up the seam in the back with the straight stitch. Yep. Oh, and now I'm sewing on the straps. So I just, I was going to cross them at first, but I guess I didn't. Like, I was going to cross them on the back, but I just hand stitched this on because it was just easier for me. You can also use the sewing machine if you want. But yeah, this was like basically the last step. Well, this should have been the last step, but then I tried it on and the waist was being kind of weird, so I had to add darts and stuff. Oh, here I'm sewing darts, which you can see. And then I added a little bit of elastic in the waist, like I did for the red dress in my last video, which I didn't show. But yeah, that's the dress. Thank you so much for watching this trial and error of a video. If you were expecting a tutorial, I'm so sorry because this was not it. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with how this dress came out. Like, it wasn't my best sewing project ever, but like, it wasn't my worst. But yeah, I hope you stay tuned for my next video, and I hope you have a great day.